streaming? All right, so we're streaming live. So a couple different things that I want to remind you of. I got this class notebook. Put this in. Let's see if it signs me in. Looks like it signed me out of everything. You can access this through the OneDrive client on your computer if you want, or you can just open it directly in here. And what's going to happen is it says Open Network Notebook. Why not? Why can't you see my screen? User error? Is that what you're telling me? So we open this up, and I got a collaboration space. And this is where you all need to start putting notes in here to help one another out for each one of the labs, right? Watch out for this, watch out for that. I made it lab 1 through 12, all right? Here's Mike's comments, you know, all the different things that I have going on here. So here's like some lab notes, and I started breaking it apart. Here's lab 1. I've created plenty of video for you to do lab 1. As I told some folks on Wednesday, this material that we're doing right now is highly foundational, and I want to take the time to explain it to you so you're not struggling a lot, because if you can overcome this, and it's just second nature to set up Active Directory and DNS and DHCP scopes and so on and so forth, all the other labs become very easy. So that's all that stuff of firewalls, making sure we're plugged into the same switch, making sure we have our IP address configured. By the way, Kyra, this was my other question I forgot to ask. IP addresses, logical or physical? You're wrong. They're logical. It's a logical addressing scheme. So always think of IP addresses like cell phone numbers, right? You don't want your cell phone number anymore, you can go get another one. Doesn't change who you are. You're still a physical person, right? Your social security number is more like a MAC address, a physical, right? It's attached to you. You can't just change it. I'm sure you can, but it's very, very difficult to do. Understand? All right. So I put a bunch of different things up here to help you, a whole bunch of different videos for you to grab and look. So Shane, there it is, Bullzip for 1.6. You're going to download, you're going to install that on one machine. You're going to make sure everything's connecting together, and then you can share it and you can follow along like normal. Okay. All right? And you will output your PDF on the other side. Lab 2, I made some different notes about Lab 2. For 2.1 through 2.5, you should be able to complete most of these labs, as we've already done a lot of them in Lab 1. A lot of the things they're asking you to do, you've kind of already done with me in Lab 1, so that gets you caught up pretty quick. However, 2.6, that's setting up IIS. So I'm going to do that today, and you can watch with me, and you can try to keep up if you want to keep up. We have enough time that we can do it all, so we'll get ourselves where we need to be, and then we can go through and set up so that you have information and internet services up and running, which is Microsoft's solution to a web server and an FTP. So pretty much this is how the internet looks. There's Apache, and those of you that had me for iTech 315, you know that our servers run on Apache if you had me for that class. And then about 50% of the internet runs on Apache. The other 50% runs on IIS. Well, I say 50, it's a little bit less than that. It's more like 45 on one and 45 on the other, with all the other ones like Nginx and those representing the rest of them, some of those lighter web servers. So that's what that is, and we're going to do that today. But then I put some basics in here to kind of cover this. I try to break it into logical chunks, right? Networking, workstations, command, server, firewall, VM, right? For the network, you need to always be aware of what your network status is. That's the first thing you should do when you sit down, is take note of, yep, I have that set up right, it's plugged into the right switch, I have that set up right, it's plugged into the right switch, so on and so forth, right? Keep notes on that if you want to do that, or make it a habit of before you leave, you put it back into some default kind of state and make a note on that. Also taking into consideration your virtual switch. What are you plugged into? Are you bridged? Are you NAT? Are you host? Are you a LAN segment, right? Always know those firewall settings and always know those IP addresses, right? I'll skip down to firewall. So after we've made sure that our workstations and our servers have the proper IP addresses, we want to make sure that our firewalls have the appropriate settings. We never do what, Shane? No matter what Shane tells you, never turn off the firewall. All right? I just don't want you to get into the habit of turning off the firewall to solve my problem, right? Because what happens when it's 12 o'clock at night and you're like, well, I'm going to solve this. I'm going to turn off the firewall. Woo, I got it to work. God, I'm tired. And you go home. So don't what, Shane? Don't teach my students to turn off the firewall. Always poke the appropriate holes in the firewall. In this case, when we need to ping back and forth, you need to turn on ICMP. That is into the firewall. If you're like, what the hell is he talking about? It's in the video, right? I go over it. It's in the video. It's kind of nice to maybe watch the video, and you can do along with it, but maybe watch it and then come back and do it if you want to do that. So you want to make sure for ping you have ICMP. That's just a very basic, all right, I'm ready to go. Right? I can ping everything I'm supposed to ping. I can see everything. I'm ready to go to do this. That way I'm not fighting with all of the other problems that might arise. All right? As you set up each of these settings and you look at all of these settings, take the time to click on the different tabs. No, you're probably not going to know what everything does. You're probably not going to have a clue what a different setting does. You're going to mess things up. You're going to blow things up. When you have password issues, just blow up the computer, right? The minute you encounter a password issue and you can't remember the password, don't even try to figure it out. Just blow it up and start over, right? I like the word blow up. It's fun, right? So after we've done that, some different workstation things that I put on there. Windows is not case sensitive, however, Linux is. And I put that on the server as well because we will play with Linux. We get very comfortable not worrying about case in Windows. Linux is case sensitive. All right, so when you get to that, think about that. Turn off the Windows updates on these machines. It's going to save you. I promise you, right about the time you're ready to take screen captures and turn everything in, stupid-ass Windows is going to update. And it's going to take like 3 hours. And you were like, no, really, Windows Update, it updated. Right, I told you. Turn it off. All right? Here's the link to the BG info. This is all about logical stuff. This is your logical layout. If you don't like how I name things, you name them however you want, as long as it's logical to you. I use 192.168.54.10, which maps to my workstation 1. 20 maps to workstation 2. If I had a 30, it would map to workstation 3, so on and so forth. You do it however you want. It's logical. You're allowed to do it however you want to do it. All right? So make sure that you're doing that. All right? Again, know what switch you're plugged into. Right? These are, the very basic things. Right? Every single computer needs a unique IP address, right? How else can we communicate with a unique device on the network if it doesn't have a unique address, right? Not necessarily static, it just has to have a unique address, right? So keeping those things in mind, making sure you're reading, right? You got to be reading all this stuff. So here's a little bit about command. You really should get to know PowerShell. You can issue the same commands in PowerShell as you can in CMD. One of the things I recommend, and I'll show you how to do it right now. I do it in the there we go. One of the things I do in the video is I show you this. I say CMD or PowerShell. So there's PowerShell. You want to right-click and say Run as Administrator. You just want to get in the habit of letting that happen for the things we're doing, and then you can pin that there. Now you're saving yourself keystrokes and everything else, right? So do those types of things. Sure. I clicked on the orb, I clicked on start, and I typed in power, and up comes PowerShell. And then I right click, and I say run as administrator. And once it's running, then I just pinned it down here. It's CMD on steroids. It's the command prompt on steroids. It's the console on steroids. PowerShell, all the stuff that you are doing in a graphical user interface, you can do in PowerShell with a command. Now, you might be like, man, that's not very efficient. Once you get the commands, it's much more efficient to issue a quick command or run a script through PowerShell than it is to grab the mouse, dig through 1,000 menu items to find what you're looking for and check something or click something, right? So that's why it's important to get to know PowerShell at least a little bit and play with it just a little bit. Matter of fact, Windows Server, I should have you install Windows Server clean. When you install Windows Server, one of the things it asks is, do you want to install the graphical user interface? And you can say no, and it doesn't install the GUI that we have. There's no GUI, absolutely. Because it's more efficient. It's a server. You're not interacting with it every day. If you're using Word and PowerPoint, a GUI is more efficient. If you're administering something, a command line is more efficient. But there's a learning curve to it. It takes time to learn that, and it's the baby steps, right? All right, so what else do I have up here? You can look under server. I tell you some different things, very much the same things about the workstation as to the server. I will say this. A server is not a workstation. Only install the software you need. Don't install something because you think you might need it on a server. A server is a server. That's all that it is. You install something that takes resources that could be otherwise useful for the server itself. But never, ever, 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 ever do that. All right? And then VMware, some basics about VMware. One of the biggest lessons learned is if you break your screens apart and you make an adjustment, you need to just close everything back down, start it back up so everything syncs back together. All right? The VMware we're using is very, very powerful. Remember, this is driving everything you do on the internet. This is what's behind it, is VMware. So it's very powerful. We're just getting a good flavor for it, but it's important that you kind of keep this in mind. Questions? Thoughts?
I do like in VM, but I just happen to do it is if you hold down control, you can drag stuff over from the desktop and put it right in
Sure.
VM.
Yep.
Which that's really helpful because I've noticed like sometimes I want to have internet connection.
Yep.
I can just drag VG info right over from my
Yep.
desktop.
You can drag it over from the desktop right in. Absolutely. So where do we want to put that? If you hold, would you say CTRL?
Yep.
Plus click a file, you can drag from host to guest or the other way. Now, I don't know why, but I can do that sometimes without controlling.
I tried it and it would always just put like a circle with like
Yeah,
a line.
I've done it the other way too, and I don't know how. I don't know if it's something that, I don't know.
Because it is pre-enabled, like I got into VMware into the preferences, and it is pre-enabled.
Yeah. Yeah, so what he's talking about is if you have a file, you just BG info and you drag it over here. See, now that copied that way with no problem. And that copied that way, and I'm not controlling.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. So Shane says if that doesn't work, hit control. Probably left control.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Other questions? Yep.
For the lab, I know you said to delete and try to keep on making the server, making a new one. Instead of like having the workstation, cause I think workstation 2 we had it like as a user.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of doing that, would it be better for the lab 2? Would it be better to make workstation 3 and then do the labs like that?
It's your call. So, again, it's about your own organization. So, for example, one of the things I'm going to do here is on my workstation 1, I'm going to come in and I want to make sure that I'm plugged into, I want to make sure, just kind of follow along and ask me questions here as we go. I want to make sure I'm plugged into switch 1. I got my everything set up here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using this snapshot manager. I'm going to take a snapshot and say before, I want to say something like clean default, right? Now I can always come back to that. Maybe I want to do one before domain connection. Because once I connect to that domain, what's quicker? Right-click or going to snapshot manager, revert back, or going through all the steps to remove the computer from the domain. Take you 5 minutes to do the one thing, takes you 30 seconds to do the other, right? And you can do that for a lot of things. I would always kind of start with this default so you can go back. And in that manager, in this snapshot manager, you can make this pretty elaborate. You can add branches and all kinds of other things. So you'd be like, well, maybe I want to go back and try this, or I want to go back and try that. You need to take the time to learn the power of it. Just use it. Even if you screw it up and you have to start over in the beginning, it saves you a lot of time ultimately, and that's what I'm about with all of this. Okay? If you've branched it appropriately, right? So I should be able to say clone the snapshot. I can't there. I don't know why. Let me see. Can I clone that one? Clone this virtual machine. Not clone. I don't want to clone. I want to say take a snapshot. I'll say I was trying to clone it. Right? So I'll say take snapshot. This operation is already in process. I'm going to try another. Yeah, it's where I'm at right now. Maybe I can do it off of this one. So anyway, you can play with it, right? You can go back and forward in time, all right? So now I'm going to come into my server, and I need to make sure my server is set up appropriately for what I'm going to do today, which is I want to show you how to install IIS and install the FTP. So I'm going to come into my Ethernet, and I'm going to click on TCP/IPv4. I'm not doing anything you don't know. 192.168.54.1. 192.168.54.1. 255. This is going to be a /24. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was looking at something. This is going to be the same. 192.168.54.1. Click OK, click OK, hit close. I want to get this BG info in here. And let me see, can I remember where that's at? Users. View. Hidden. View extensions. Let's see, default. App data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, start menu, programs. I feel too deep. Windows. Oh, hell. Where was it? Start menu, programs. No, that's not it. Anybody remember where it's at? Maybe watch that video. Yeah. Anyways, so I want to, for now, I'm just going to double click on it, make sure it's running the way that I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to run this. This is this basic setup right now. Not doing anything fancy. There we go. So there I am, 192.168.54.1. I can turn off the other network cards if I want, but I'm okay with that particular interface running, or maybe just so we don't get confused. disable that one. There we go. Now I'm not confused. And then you need to make sure that this is also plugged into the same switch. I should have been paying more attention. Switch one. Hopefully. Let's see what's up here. All right. We'll see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my firewall. I want to make sure these guys can ping back and forth, so I'm going to go to inbound. If you've watched the videos, this feels familiar. So I'm going to go where? Echo request, very good. I want to enable that. Yes, I did. Yep, advanced. Oh, I may have. I see what you're saying. I want to shut this one down because I keep coming back to it. So I'll come over here. I'm going to do the same thing here. Firewall, inbound. Here there's 3 different ones. You might want to look at each one of them. Some are for TCP/IP v4. Some are not. Some are for public, private, and domain. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to enable that. And I'm going to enable that. Now I'm going to try to ping 192.168.54.1 with the /t. What's the /t do? Very good.
How do you stop that?
You can just close it or Control 0x. And then I'll do a ping back to the other one. 10. Yep, looking good. All right. So to draw with nothing. So imagine. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go get it. We'll go get a marker. What's up, Michael? Another new car. Sounds good.
Yeah, actually, reducing my monthly payments by about between 2 by about 150 if I do it.
Can't beat that with a bat. Oh! All right, so at this point, in your journals, in your notes, in that OneNote or in your own notes, whatever you want to do, you want to draw out your network. So I got switch 1, and to switch 1, I have server at 192.168.54.1. That's connected to switch 1, and I also have workstation, is that workstation 1? Workstation 1 connected to switch 1 at 192.168.54.10. I can fill in the other information if I want. Even when I do these, scribble something down like this, right? I don't put in the rest of it because I know that that's a /24. I know that it's going to be 192.168.54.1 for DNS and gateway and everything else. See what I'm doing? Now I'm ready to do the lab. What's the lab? Everything's connected. I don't have to worry. I've no longer need to worry to have everything set up right? Now I can just install IIS, so on and so forth. No, not take a picture of it. No, write it down in your own notes. My chicken scratch doesn't do you any good. Oh, you're going to put it into your notes in there, lazy. All right, so how do we install a role in Windows Server 2012? Yep, so we'll come down here, we'll click on that. Now at this point, we want to add a role. Again, you can follow along if you want. If not, this will be there. Maybe it's better you just listen and ask questions if you want. We'll click on Next. We're going to do a role-based. Okay, I don't like my server name. Damn it, I forgot about my server name. So I'm going to cancel that off. I want to come in, and I want to change my server name. What do I want to call my server name? Yep, server 1. What'd you say, Netflix what? That's the beauty of these things, man. They just restart like that. By the way, in the real world, servers don't restart that fast. Servers will take 5-10 minutes sometimes to restart. They just, there's a lot of stuff going on. All right, let's try this again. All right, here we go. Ready? Let's try it again. Add server role, role-based, server 1. Notice my IP address, 192.168.54.1. I'm going to scroll down until I find web server IIS, Internet and Information Services. You must do the following. Okay, fine. Next. I'm going to scroll down on this one. Sorry, not here. We'll be fine here. These are all be fine. Click next again. Click next again. On this one, we're going to scroll down until we find FTP server. We want to enable the FTP server as well. Click next. And we'll say restart if necessary. Install. Even if it doesn't restart at the end of this, I found, just go ahead and restart it. Just do it. All right, there's that, and there's that. Close that off. Still getting a nice ping from over there, so it's all up. All right, installation succeeded. Close. And again, I said make sure you restart, so I'm going to do a quick restart on this guy. Notice how server asks you what is the reason you are restarting, right? Your Windows 10 machine does never do that, right? A server wants to log everything in excruciating detail because you as an administrator, whatever that administration is, need to be able to track down whatever the problem was. All right, so here we go. I'm still pinging. You should have been able to see down here somewhere where the bad things happen. Nah, always fails you to do that. Back to pinging. Okay, so at this point, check this out. I can bring up a browser. And for the browser, I can type in the IP address of this server. Now, I don't have a DNS server set up, so I can't type in netpluslab.net. But if I had it set up, I could type that in, and my website will come up. So I'm going to type in just the IP address, 192.168.54.1, hit enter, boom. I'm gold. I got my web server up and running. That easy. It's that easy. I made sure everything was connected, firewalls were appropriate. That firewall setting got adjusted automatically, so you want to take the time to go in and look and see that happening. All right? So you go into the server and you say firewall. And in here you look at inbound, and if you scroll down to that's HTTP and World Wide Web Services. Is that one port 80? Maybe. So you keep looking around until you find it. All right, but it's in there, I promise. Okay. Notice there's FTP. That's turned on for us as well. If we would like to change the address or the port number for our FTP, don't forget to change the port number on the firewall. Okay? So, next thing we need to do is that FTP. So, we are going to come into IIS. I'm going to double click on server 1, or right click on server 1 and go to Internet and Information Service Manager. And over here on the left, we see our server running. I want you to take the time to always explore. It's the first time, probably everybody in the class has seen this, right? So take the time, click around. If you screw it up, what do? How much time have we wasted? Hardly any. I've been feeling the majority of what we've been doing, even though it seems like a long time that this has been, I've been talking a lot, right? Drawing diagrams and stuff. How hard it is to nuke this and go back to the snapshot and come back up if you screw something up, right? All we've done, the only thing we've done is install IIS, right? So you come in and you start messing around. So now what you're going to do is in here, you need to click on Sites, and under Sites, we already have the default website, but we need to add a default FTP site. So we click over here on the right, we click on Add FTP Site. And what are we going to call it? We'll call it www.root. These are things that I know. This is that experience thing. Physical path. So I'm going to come out to the C drive. It's under Internet Pub. Under Internet Pub, it's under www.root. Okay? There's an FTP root as well, but we're going to link it straight to www.root. I click on OK. I click on Next. What IP address? Well, I want to assign that to listen on 192.168.54.1. Notice the port. Default port is 21. Maybe collaboratively, somebody needs to start a sheet called default ports. And we start remembering these. Port 80, port 443, port 21, port 22, port 110. Right? We want to click on no SSL for this because you don't want to say, I want to abstract out the security aspect right now. Right? No SSL. Next. You can do authentication anonymous and basic, allow access to all users, and you can give them read and write. So what that means is anybody that's a user on your server has access. They immediately have an account, an FTP account. Now, I only have one user. It's the administrator. You with me? Yeah, I showed you how to add users in one of my videos. And you fumble around until you find it, or you always remember you got that administrator account, right? Click on Finish. Now, watch this. This is the cool stuff. You get to see it all come together. Instead of doing what the book says, which is use the console, right? And they say FTP, blah, 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 blah. Let's use FileZilla. We're familiar with FileZilla. So FileZilla is already installed for you, so you open it up. And then we'll come in. And we can put in here 192.168.54.1, username, administrator, password. Password explanation at pound. There we go. Boom, there it is. So I've connected over there. There it is. Now, for those of you that don't believe me, because I know I got a few naysayers. Nuh-uh, Mike. Okay, so I'm going to drag it over here. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to say Edit with Notepad++. Those of you that are familiar with HTML, I want to come in and I want to change this to whoops. That's supposed to be 355. I want to save it. I'll drag it back up there. Now watch this. What's going to change? Yeah, this right here, right? And there's your 1.6. I promise. Focus on, do I have the right IP addresses? Do I have the right firewall rules configured? Don't turn off the firewall. Make sure they're all plugged into the same switch. Those are the most important things. If you get that down, the rest of it begins to fall in place. Because that, ultimately, you do that about 3 times, you can complete everything I just did as fast as it takes for your computer to reboot. I promise. You do it 2-3 times, it just takes that long. So now I'm at a point, and I'm like, well, gee, I'd really like to maybe, I'd like to try that again. So now we're just at that point. So I can come in here and I can right click and I can go to snapshot and I can go to snapshot manager and I can realize that I forgot to take a snapshot of the server before and say, damn. All right. My point was I was going to roll it back and do it again immediately, right, to get it in my mind because that was a pretty easy one. Active Directory domain services is very much the same thing. They're all very much the same thing. Try to do them a couple times once you've set them up once. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and spend, this enormous amount of time beyond the 10 hours that you owe me per week, right? But it's good foundational stuff, and it just makes everything else easier. Even when you get into the next network administration class, when you start talking about OUs, organizational units and stuff, you're going to be like, man, that seems familiar. Was that an Active Directory? Oh, yeah, that was an Active Directory. Oh, that's right, I can do this. You mean to tell me I can make them a part of this organization and now they inherit all that stuff? You take the time to explore now. That's what all this class is about. Okay? So I had a request from multiple people that I extend the due dates. My hand is relatively empty right now. I'm taking bribes. Pass around a hat. As much video help and everything that I've done, right? It is unfair in this case. If it just been Monday, you guys would be screwed, right? If we just had off Monday, we had off Monday and Wednesday. So I'm going to extend them until Monday night with the understanding that you still have other stuff due. Why I want to give you until Monday night is I expect for you to be working on it over the weekend, right? I really recommend watching those videos or listening to those videos while you're working out or whatever, and then coming in and doing them because it'll make a lot more sense. And then I want to give you the opportunity on Monday in case you have any other questions. I can tidy those up for you. Okay? The only thing I haven't done is the bullzip. The virtual printer one. Not hard to do. You have all the basics set up, you install the bullzip, and then you just follow the directions that are in the book.
Bullzip is for 1.6, right?
Yes, yes. I'm sorry, that was...
Yeah, did you mention 1.6 earlier?
I meant it was like chapter 2. The FTP is in chapter lab 2.
For the one with the problem, I know Shane said just pick one. And
It's the one that like you have the client has login issues and it just kind of has.
Oh, yeah.
so can you like, I recommend like pick like faulty wiring or something?
Sure. Yeah. Unplug something. It's more of a mental exercise. Don't worry. I'll come in and mess with you one day. That's what you're doing. Is troubleshooting skills.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like with the IIS there, when you said about essentially who would all have access to that FTP? Is that like anybody that you have on your domain would have access to that FTP, or is it just?
In this case, if that server were available to the public,
Yeah.
anybody would.
Okay.
So that's where we start traversing our network, and we get to that eventually. We start realizing that we're going to be very selective about what we make available and how we make it available, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Right now, anybody, the way it's connected right now, there are no restrictions. Anybody that would be connected, I could right now, and I'll do it just so you can. Oh no, it'll mess with things. I can do this. Do you have any of your workstations set up as? Anybody have their workstations set up with 192.168? Nah, never mind. We're not going to do that. It's going to blow things up. I could set up a web server right now and put it into the bridged mode, and anybody in here could connect to it. I mean, just like that. It'd be that easy to do. I'm not going to do it because a lot of people are using 192.168.54.10, and the next thing you know, duplicate, and then it doesn't know where to route it. To know how to route the packets back. So, all right? All right. I need those letters back, and I need to go copy them. Don't leave. Did you put your proxy number on there? Proxy number's on there. It's bigger than that.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Can I give it to you later then? Because I don't have my card on me.
Yeah, you can email it to me. Okay.
It's fine if I take a photo of it, so
You're gonna email me your proxy number? No, wait. I want to go make a copy of it for you. Well, actually, I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to give you back the original. You got to sign it. I can meet you out in the hallway if you want. Now, what the proxy number is going to do is going to give you access to the room and to the building. Okay? All right. No, it's not done because Stephanie wasn't here and I didn't have all of these. So.
GitHub swag. The stickers are cool.
Sweet.
The t-shirts are separate, I guess. But.
Awesome, man. I'm glad they got that to you. Go ahead.
How you doing?
Good. How are you? Good. My iTech 355. Just pick up your letter on the way out here. I got it up here. It's ready to go. Sorry, Jasmine. No one's not chairs even. Joshua, JJ, Adam.
Yeah, I think I have like 3 more to do, I think, or something like that. So, and then the one's that FTP thing. So.
Yeah, I have like 4 of them.
I got 1.6, and then I got, I think 2 or so more.
Yeah, well,
I'm glad too.
that's what I was asking. I think I'm just make a new workstation and just.
I haven't done the screenshot thing, man, or the snapshot thing.
You've spent more time thinking about that decision than the blink of an eye that it takes to make Workstation 3. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I actually asked Lucas, and he was like, yeah, I did a bunch of snapshots. y'all spending so much time making machines and stuff.
Yeah.
Now I can just, in a minute or two, you got one.
How is everyone? What do you mean, all right? Oh, I'm sorry. You mad that you're off work? Most people are elated they're off work.
Well, no, so like what I'm doing is I'm trying to like warp a couple pictures to like math projections and stuff for the engineering department, and really like it won't return a damn thing. And like I'm putting in like proper screens on this and everything, but like it just won't do it. So
What are you using?